Okay, we're going to configure the displays now. So I've selected a Intel NUC which has two outputs, a VGA and a HDMI. So click on display and you'll notice the default setting is clone, which means if you've got more than one display, the same image is going to appear on both of them unless you change it to extend desktop. You also notice that there's a screensaver timeout in minutes here, 20 minutes, so if you don't touch a key for 20 minutes the screen's going to go into screensaver mode. If you set that to 0, it'll disable the screensaver. So in this case we just want to show how to set up two displays on the Intel NUC. So click on extend desktop. The first display you just leave it at none, and then the second display I want it to the right of output 1. I could choose left of, above, below or none. Obviously I want it to work, so I'll select right of, and you can set the orientation, either landscape or portrait, and the resolution is automatically detected, or you can set whatever you like here under these two settings. Once you've done that, all you do is click on OK, and then you'll need to reboot it for that to take effect, but I'll just cancel it in this case. So okay, that's the display covered. Reboot, well, that'll reboot any selected devices, so anything you've ticked here, if you click on reboot, they'll reboot. A zone sets the time zone, so we can choose anywhere in the world, any location, and set the time zone that we're actually in for the client. I'll just click cancel on that. Upgrade. This is used to upgrade the firmware, and there's, as it says, there's no firmware upgrades were found, so the version of TLX OS that's running on this NUC is the latest version. There's nothing newer, but this is what you use to upgrade the firmware. So once you've installed TLX OS once on a device, you don't have to go through the procedure of installing it again from the USB stick. You can just download the latest firmware and then upgrade it using the upgrade firmware button here. And if you had 100 NUCs, you just select them all and click on upgrade, and all 100 would be upgraded simultaneously, which takes about 5 minutes on a Intel NUC, and on a Raspberry Pi it can take like 10 or 15 minutes. So okay, we won't actually worry about doing that, but that's what this icon does. Network, there's two choices. Wired interface, that's pretty standard on everything except the Raspberry Pi Zero, which only has Wi-Fi. And the method is DHCP, or you can have static, in which case you enter a static IP, or you can have DHCP with DNS override. Some DHCP servers don't hand out the DNS information, so you need to be able to enter that. So if you select that, you then enter the DNS server names or IP addresses in these boxes here. So I'll change that back to static. We are adding a 802.1x option for the wired interface on TLX OS, so that's coming in the next TMS release. It's used by large organisations, universities and so on. The wireless interface is a little bit more complicated. We've still got the same selections, DHCP static or DHCP with DNS override, but we have a number of choices for the protocol use for the encryption. So some people actually want no encryption for just testing purposes. Some people want WEP, which is insecure. By today's standards, you wouldn't use WEP because it's easy to crack. WPA2 Personal is the most popular one that you'll find on small Wi-Fi access points. And then there's WPA2 Enterprise Password, which is a bit more complex. And then if we select that, you have to enter a username and a password. And then there's WPA2 Enterprise Certificate, and then you're required to upload a PKCS certificate bundle. So I'll just leave this back on where it was, WPA2 Personal. So that's how you set up the interfaces. Cancel on that. Now if you want to configure your keyboard, mouse and audio, you just select it here, the keyboard symbol, and you can see there's a lot of choices here, but for most people it'll probably just be the default US keyboard. If you're using Citrix and you're say somewhere in Europe, you might want to select, if you're in France for example, you'd need to select the French option for Citrix to actually handle the keyboard properly. So there's this box at the top here is the general configuration for your keyboard, which you'd set it as layout French on here. But if you happen to be connecting to a Citrix session, you have to also set the keyboard Citrix layout here. So you need to set both of these. On the left hand side here you can see there's audio output port, Raspberry Pi only. Well, Raspberry Pi does audio slightly differently to most devices, so we've had to make a special case for the Raspberry Pi. So normally it's set on auto, where it tries to determine whether to use HDMI output for audio or whether to use analog. So you can override auto and just select analog or HDMI, because some monitors, even though they're HDMI audio capable, don't work unless you manually select HDMI audio. Then the mouse orientation we've got here, right-handed or left-handed. Enable numlock. Some people need that. On-screen keyboard is a keyboard for touchscreens, and you can set the audio volume here and the mouse sensitivity. So I'll just click cancel on that. Firewall, it's always defaulted to on, but you can turn it off if you want to. Well, that's entirely up to you. We just have it on the whole time. Upload. We can upload certain types of files to a device running TLX OS. So we can upload a PPD printer file. So that enables you to use the CUPS printer system with a custom printer file that you might borrowed from your Windows printer driver. So that enables us to support more printers than we would otherwise be able to support. This is all in the user guide, so there's more information about how to do that in the user guides. SSH key, if you want to SSH as the root user, you need to copy your public SSH key to TLX OS on the device that you want to connect to. So you just click that, and then you can upload your SSH public key. Some people want to change the wallpaper background from the blue default image to their own wallpaper after it's booted up. If you want to do that, you just select wallpaper PNG image and you can upload it. For Citrix in particular, if you want to use HDX mode, you're going to have to in most cases upload a CA certificate. and to do that you select CA certificate and you browse for it with the browse button, then you can upload it. And then certificate bundle, that's for Wi-Fi WPA2 enterprise certificate mode. So I'll just click cancel there, and then we've got download. This is how you download new firmware upgrades and hotfixes, and also how you download new versions of the TMS client. So you just click on OK, and then you've got to choose. We've got 5 mirror servers, so you just choose one of them closest to your location. So that's over in America, and you'll see a list of what you can download. Now we've just released a new version of TMS client, so for all of our different versions of TLX OS. So if you wanted to, and we recommend that you would install the latest version, because it fixes a few bugs in the previous version. So the latest version fixed a few issues we had with discovery when the clients were located in various regions around the world and they had trouble connecting to the TMS server, and this fixes that issue. So we recommend you install this. In the next firmware release, this version of TMS client is already integrated into it. So so we could select that. We could select firmware for RePC. We could select firmware for the Intel small form factor, but we're already at version 4.4, and this is the previous version. So we haven't released the new updated version yet, but when we do, you'll be able to upgrade any devices running TLX OS that are Intel small form factor by simply selecting it, clicking on OK. The message appears down here that it's downloading the firmware. So because it's 346 megabytes, it may take 5 or 10 minutes to download. And then once it's downloaded, it's available to be installed to any selected Intel small form factor devices simultaneously. So all you do is select them all and click on the upgrade icon here, which will enable you to upgrade them all. So click on cancel there. Now when you download these using the download icon, they actually appear in a series of directories that we have. There's a firmware directory, and these directories, the default locations, program data, ThinLinX management software, and then the subdirectories are firmware, hotfix, profiles, temp directory, and TMS client. So if I have a look in the firmware directory, you can see that I actually do have a firmware upgrade for an earlier version of the Raspberry Pi in here, and these are the files that are in that actually directory. So if I downloaded firmware for Intel small form factor, that would be there, or RePC or whatever. The next directory is hotfix, and all the hotfixes that I've downloaded appear in this directory. So there's a hotfix for Phoenix PC, which is a repurposed PC solution, TLX NUC 32, which is the Intel NUC, and Intel small form factor, and also Raspberry Pi. And there's a number of hotfixes for the Raspberry Pi that we have here. One of them is a Citrix receiver upgrade, because version 4.4 of our firmware had receiver 13.5, and everyone wants the latest one, so we've released a hotfix for receiver 13.6. Profiles is something that's under development, so I won't talk about that yet. There's a temp directory where some information is stored,